Clare Harrison. I'm the Library and Heritage Manager. So I'm going to give you just a bit of context about the college and its collections, and then Claire and Monique will come and talk a bit about what we're doing now and sort of like the future as well. So just for those who aren't aware who we are or what we do, so we were founded in 1599. We were set up to regulate medicine and surgery in the west of Scotland and Glasgow. We were the only multidisciplinary medical college in the world. We're now the only one in the UK. There are others around. But today our roles changed. So originally we were set up to license people to practice. We don't license people to practice anymore. We're continuing professional development now. And we do that through training, exams, education in general as well. And you can see we've got a lot of different faculties to the college as well. So we represent a lot of different medical practitioners. Back. There we are. So just a bit about our heritage collection. So the college was never really founded with the intention of being a museum. It's just that over the years it's acquired things. So for the archive, that makes a lot of sense. It's contained its own records over the years. The museum collection really came from people just giving things to the college that members would find of interest, that they would then use in teaching, or they would just put on display for a couple of days, that kind of thing. The library collection was built up with the foundation of the college as well. But we so whilst we've got three areas to the collection, we actually just think of it as one whole collection. We just think of it as the heritage collection, so we don't really separate them out quite so much. And those collections are used for research, exhibitions, all kinds of different things, by its members and fellows and by the public as well. So another part of our heritage is actually the building we're in. So we're on St Vincent Street in Glasgow. We occupy 4 old mansion houses, not built for the college. The only thing that was built for the college is this rather lovely hall, which is at the back of the building. That was built in the 1890s. And the building is still a working college. We're not a heritage venue as such. So if you're a member or prospective member, you're coming in for AGMs, you're coming in for workshops, you're coming in to sit your exams or to get your certificate because you've finally got your diploma. But you might also be coming in as a member of the public for research or for tours and events. So the building is really well used and for a lot of different purposes. But that's really where some of the problems start with the heritage of the college. So it is a beautiful hall. But the eagle-eyed amongst you might have spotted that round the walls we have lots of lovely portraits, but those portraits have a lot in common. So they are all men, they're all white men, they're all men of a certain age really as well, by and large. And that's not just true of College Hall, that's pretty much true of the entire building. So wherever you walk, up staircases, down corridors, this is what you'll see. We have other portrait paintings as well, they're not all portraits, but the portrait collection is by and large all white men. The college today is an international college. Back in the day in 1599, it was just for the west of Scotland. Today we have members throughout the world. And you imagine coming into our building now, how welcoming does that feel to you? You know, if you're sitting in an exam and all these faces are staring down at you, how a part of our college do you actually feel? So we've had to start looking at how we change that. So if you were a woman coming into the college pre-2017, there were 4 portraits on the wall related to women. 3 of those were princesses. I don't think we all particularly relate to being a princess. There was one painting that featured a woman. There, for those who, just in case you're struggling, there she is. This is painted in 1999. So, you know, it's not all that old really. And this was to celebrate 400 years of the college. And it is the college council, so it's the main functioning body of the college. It's who represents the college. And on council at that time, there was one woman. We shouldn't laugh, but we do quite laugh at this portrait because it almost looks comical because she's just sort of popping her head out from the side like, hi, I'm here, hello. But yes, so there she is. And in 1999, that would not have been a true representation of the medical workforce. You've all got experience of the NHS, and you'll know that that is not what the NHS looked like. But what it probably does represent is where the power lay at that time. So if you're a woman, that's really the only positive sort of painting we got in the college. If you're a person of colour, it was far, far worse. There were no representations of anybody of colour working in the medical profession at all. The only representation we had, was 3 paintings that hung in the David Livingstone room, which has already got some complexities behind it. And that is this one. Well, there were 3. There were a series that showed landscapes in Africa relating to David Livingstone's discoveries out there. So they're really difficult to see. If you look in the bottom right and left corner, you can see depictions there, a very sort of like colonial idea of what Africa was like. They were the only paintings we had on the wall that represented people of colour, and not particularly welcoming at all. And in a room that really has complex history, so it was in a room that looked at David Livingstone. David Livingstone was a doctor, he was a member of the college, he was a fellow, he was an honorary fellow, but he was never really celebrated for his medical work. He was celebrated for his discoveries out in Africa. So the whole story that the college told around Livingstone was complicated as well. It was very colonial, very empire-driven. And the college had always celebrated Livingstone for those reasons. He was the celebrity of his day. So he was kind of like, they really wanted to big him up because he'd done his whole sort of career through the college, and they wanted that celebrity figurehead there. So the college had some real issues. It just didn't represent its membership at all. So back in, I can't believe this was 2017, but this is at the end of 2017, we decided we needed to change things, but we couldn't use our collections to do that because there was nothing in our collections that represented. So we had an event where we got in touch with our current members and fellows. We asked them to send in photographs of themselves. We had a really great response to that. So many people sent us photos. And what we did is we took that college hall, that traditional space, and we really disrupted it. We had laser lights, there was music, and what we did was there was a big projection screen, and I hope this shows up well, but what we did is we kind of morphed everybody into different people. So this is Peter Lowe, the college founder, and you can see he's just morphing into one of our fellows of the college there. And it was a really successful event, it went really well, but at the end of the evening, that was all taken down, it was all put away again, and it was like it had never happened, it was all reset. So we really needed to start doing things that were more permanent and to make sure that we kept this going. So in 2018, we welcomed our very first female president of the college. That only took 420 years, Jackie Taylor. And as part of that, it was a catalyst for sort of improving our research. So we started with what we called the Admitting Women project. This looked specifically at the first female fellows of the college. We started with fellowship because it's like the highest accolade you can get, but also it was a sure starting point for us because we did actually know who the first female fellow was, so we got a starting point with that. We are a very small team though, there's just 2 of us, so we rely on researchers and funding to do these projects. So we were lucky enough to get support to get a researcher in who worked with us for 6 months researching the first 4 women to apply for fellowship. The first 3 were rejected solely on the grounds that they were women, and that is the reason the college gives. But the 4th one, Jiminy Sen, was successful, and that was in 1912. And as part of that project, we also created some new artwork, which again was put in College Hall and was on display for about a year. And it was fabric wall hangings that were created. We deliberately decided not to have portraits because 3 of those women had never been a part of the college anyway. They'd been rejected, so that didn't seem right. And they were done by 2 artists called Bespoke Atelier who are in Glasgow. So we then kept going, so there's no stopping us. So next, because Jiminy Sen came from India, it was led in nicely to our next project, which was researching the first South Asian licentiates. So we chose South Asia partly because of Jiminy Sen, but also because our biggest membership outside the UK is from South Asia. And this again was another funded project through the EDI in Scottish Heritage Project. We were really lucky to get a first-year medical student on board with us for that, Tawil Ali. He has South Asian heritage, and his grandparents were the first to come over. And he really had quite a challenge ahead of him because we didn't know anything. We knew absolutely nothing about when our first South licentiates were or who they were. So he had real challenge on his hands. And the only resource we could give him where we knew that information must be was our register of licentiates. So everybody has to sign the register once they graduate. So he spent many patient hours going through the registers and looking. So luckily the registers have place of birth. And he found our very first ones, which was in 1874. You can see the names here, 4th and 3rd from the bottom. So we've got Banka Bahari Gupta and Zahor Ali Ahmed. And Tawil was absolutely delighted because I think it was Zahor actually came from the same area as his grandparents. So he was so excited. And it was really lovely to see him working on this project as well, because he took such a lot away from it. It was so beneficial for him and his family. We kind of brought back Reframed. So Reframed had been a one-off event, but we really needed to keep momentum going. So Reframed was a series of events that we ran sort of during COVID time, really, so they were all online. And Reframed was looking at how we look at our collections in a different way. So whilst it's not obvious we have things in the collection that relate to different communities, it is there. It's small, it's very fragmented, but it is there. So these were discussions looking at that and how we promote that, how we find more of it, but also learning for us because this is completely new for us. And a lot of these topics, you know, are we really the people that should be talking about this? Some of this isn't our history. So we collaborate with people. So for example, the David Livingstone event that we did, we collaborated with Zandra Yemen, who at the time was the curator of discomfort at the Hunterian, and also the David Livingstone Museum, who've done an awful lot of work around this area. Reframed Tawil was part of that, and we also had 2 of our current fellows who had South Asian connections and had recently moved to the UK as well, so they were telling their story. So all these events, we collaborate with different communities, and we've covered many, many different topics. That's just a short list of them there. And these are all still online now, so you can still go and watch these. So let's go. And then the future. So Claire and Monique are going to talk much more about that, but I'll just briefly say the big thing for us is research. And hidden histories. I think a lot of museums don't like using that term because we don't feel our collections are hidden. But in this case, they very much are. Nobody's ever researched these topics before. So we need a lot more research. We also need more visibility. It's no good doing that research if we're not doing anything with it. But one of the big things we're going to have to start looking at is what we collect today, because our collection is very, very male, very European, very white. And that is true right up to present day. So we need to start looking at that as well. So I'm going to pass on to the other Claire.
Hi, everybody. The college today, I'm going to pick up on quite a few strands that Claire's already touched on, that we're 425 years now. We were founded in 1599, and our global membership, you know, has expanded massively. Just a quick slide showing, don't know how much you can read that. I was doing my sums from this slide just last night, just to work out what's the percentage of people from international and from the UK that are now members of our college. We've got about 15,000 members roughly around the world, and about 56% are from the UK, and about the rest of that is international. But then drilling down using the figures we've got, just over 20%, so just over a fifth of our membership is actually from South Asia, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan in particular. So that's pretty massive. You know, that's a really important constituency for our college. We also, so we don't just have members, you know, we go out, we have a membership team who go out and they actively try to recruit members in the UK and abroad. And we do examinations. That's just one slide showing examinations taking place in New Delhi just last year. So, you know, we have all this engagement, which is very much a membership engagement model where we're trying to bring people in and become part of the college. But it's, you know, how does that connect to our heritage and what Claire has been showing us in terms of our collections. There's a massive disconnect there, you know, it doesn't connect at all. And also, how does that connect with Glasgow? We're in this city, we've been there for 425 years. We are a medical college within a sector which is incredibly diverse in itself in terms of not just the numbers of members, not just the people that are working in the NHS who have travelled and come to Britain, the people who have been living in the UK of diverse backgrounds and heritages over the last hundreds of years. It's not just like all of a sudden people have just come to Britain. It's, you know, we're going way back, and we know that, and we've got that research. So just looking at Glasgow today, Glasgow has the most ethnically diverse population in Scotland. This is figures from 2022. 19% of the population was from an ethnic minority. Again, massive, you know, that's verging on a fifth of the population now. So what are we doing about that? And I think Claire has touched on bits of that now. And I think it's basically just about continuing the new approaches, new partnerships that we want to carry on with. The White Thinking project we were part of last year. That's the gentleman on the right is Liliane Thuram, who some of you who follow football might be aware of, a French international footballer, but from the Caribbean with a family history of being enslaved, and is now this incredible activist and thinker, and very interesting having seen Jeremiah's maps and the different perspectives. I wish I'd put a photo on of this because I've got it pinned on the wall of my office. Liliane Thuram's map, which he's inverted the world, and it is seeing it from a totally different perspective, with Africa really centred and Europe looking so small and insignificant, and America over to the side. And it's just a fantastic visual, powerful symbol of how we are so Eurocentric, so white-centric, and how we are the global minority. And that is something that, you know, is just such a crucially important thing for us to keep in mind. Bottom right, the Delivering Change Museum Transformers programme. This is Museums Galleries Scotland. We're part of this programme at the college, one of, I think, 19 museums around Scotland. And we've been part of this anti-racism training. I know there's a number of other people in the room, I think, who are taking part in that as well. And it is really quite transformational, you know, in terms of bringing our team internally together, primarily a white staff team, coming together, discussing our white privilege, you know, really probably for the first time, and really understanding what it means, and what it means in terms of how we work and who we work with, what we value, and, you know, understanding how powerful we all are, you know, all of us sitting in this room in our own jobs. We may not think it, but we all have a lot of power in terms of stories and priorities. I just wanted to touch back onto what Claire had been referring to, because this is sort of one of the key things that we've tried to do in the last year, sort of building on the Reframed programme and the work, the research that was being carried out into our registers and our people that had been signing the registers as fellows. This is Dr. Jimini Sen. Born in Bengal, now West Bengal, in India, and grew up, went to Calcutta Medical School, furthered her medical career in India, became family, which is, you know, class is obviously very important in all of this as well. But she ended up for 10 years, in fact, being the physician to the royal family of Nepal, and worked in women's health. We have some photographs that we've been given from her family. In the last couple of years, we've started to bond very closely with her great great niece, Deepta, who is still in Calcutta, and with the wonders of modern technology, we've formed quite a nice connection with her. And it's that honouring and understanding the human stories and backgrounds to individuals and people, and seeing them as people and not just as a symbol or a story. So Jamini Sen did focus on women's health in particular. She, under the British Raj system, Ayurvedic and Indian medicine was obviously not seen as valuable as or important as the modern scientific approaches to medicine. So if you wanted to get on, really, you had to come over to Britain, to the mothership. And she came over and studied in Dublin, but then came to Glasgow and sat her fellowship exam and became, we had previously had, as Claire referred to, we'd had other women who'd tried to get membership as fellows of the college. And by the time Jamini came, it had already pretty much been agreed that a woman would be allowed in as a fellow. So there was an open door there for her. So we, look back on this and think, okay, so the very first female fellow of the college was an Indian woman. It's almost too kind of amazing for that to have happened, but we'd not really ever marked it in a more formal way. So this is what we decided to do. We commissioned a portrait of her, and as you've already seen, we have College Hall, our bastion to primarily dead white males. So we took this decision that we would create a posthumous portrait using photographs of Jamini that we'd been very kindly given by her family. And we, in the process of creating this portrait, and it's been created, the brief was to create something that would fit within the hall, that would work within the kind of classical European style of art. And, we were hopeful that we would get a female artist, and perhaps an artist who wasn't just necessarily of white British background. So we kind of asked around and got some help from the National Galleries of Scotland, and we found Grace Payne Kumar, who she's got a mix of South Asian and Scottish heritage, which just just seemed so perfect to have this young woman who she'd been living in Edinburgh, and she'd been highly commended in the Scottish Portrait Artist of the Year Award. And when I approached her, she just was so keen, because she was already thinking about how to subvert these sort of Eurocentric perspectives. So she jumped at the chance and worked with us, with the family, and with the photos that we had to create that portrait. And so we're delighted with it, because it's so important as a symbol. We have used it since. So it was last summer the portrait was installed and launched, and then we've started this sort of connecting, listening, just engaging with people. We're not. It's a process, isn't it? We're not. We don't have a master plan. I think it's more about embedding this, and we want to engage and bring people in and value the multiplicity, the plurality, as Jeremiah was saying, of experiences, of people. So these are some of the events we've run, and that building our connections, because we'll all expand and learn from each other, and it can only improve what we do as a result. So we're just so keen to work with people and learn and share. And this is my final slide. At the moment, this is what we're talking about doing, connecting up with the College of Physicians, I know Rachel's here, and the College of Physicians in London as well, who are also doing similar work, exploring their archives now and looking for this presence of Indian doctors in Britain, going way back, and more people than has been previously shared and made public. Because if we don't find if we don't go looking, because there's never been the history of this research, really, until we actually start to ask the questions, we won't know. And therefore people can say, well, nobody was here before, but actually they are, and we want to keep going with this work. So I'm now going to hand over to Monique.
Unfortunately, my name is not Claire. I'm Monique. But I'm really excited to speak to you today about the Royal College of Glasgow's collections and their impact on my research. As has kind of already been covered, my PhD is on the history of South Asian medical people coming over to Scotland, getting their qualifications or practicing in Scotland. A few of you might know that South Asian people make up the largest portion of ethnic minorities in the NHS today, but this has kind of always been the case in Britain. And it's a history that dates back to the mid-1800s. To my estimation, around 200 to 300 people of South Asian heritage got their medical qualification in Scotland prior to the 20th century. This isn't an insignificant number at all. And obviously, this is really linked to British colonialism, particularly and more specifically after 1857 when power was transferred to the Crown rule. After this period, British colonialism kind of started to take shape in a morally righteous kind of way. We were to civilize Indian people, so we started to project our views of enlightenment and science and medicine onto people in India. We'd set up universities and medical colleges in India since the 1830s, but as Claire mentioned, degrees from these places were not seen as good enough by the British government to practice in India, so people would have to come over to Europe to get a degree in order to practice medicine in India. A lot of people came to Scotland because of its wonderful medical education and reputation. So my project is about Scotland as a whole, but today I'll just be talking about the Royal College of Glasgow and its impact on my project. I'll talk about the pros and cons of these and also what we can do about the dearth of sources on these people. So, as Clare Harrison has outlined, the college holds a lot of really useful things for projects like mine. They hold medical registers, medical directories, physical copies of medical journals, which are all really useful. But my favourite are the licentiate registers and the triple qualifications. These are really old, bound documents with lots of old-timey handwriting, which make you really feel like a historian. But the main pro of these, I would say, is that you can come across people who are hidden by other historical sources. So a lot of people written in these books, you don't find them in secondary sources. Historians don't talk about them because they just came, got their qualification and went out and practiced. So yeah, they act as a really good starting point with good biographical information, place of birth, date of birth, who examined them, where they were staying at the time of qualification, that kind of thing. Now, to ruin my reputation with the Royal College, I'm going to talk about the disadvantages of their archives. Number one for me is maybe more of a user error, and it is handwriting, particularly 19th century handwriting from doctors, is really difficult to decipher. The first name up there is Dr. Rose Govindu Rajalu. Hopefully people are looking at that and thinking that does not say Rose Govindu Rajalu. But if you are thinking, yeah, duh, I maybe need a new career. But yeah, that took me a while to uncover, and it kind of shows the limitations of these sources, that you need to really look at them for a while, or look at secondary sources to kind of verify who the people are. My second one is Nityananda Chatterjee, and that kind of, his name again is also quite hard to decipher, but his name is kind of the example of how South Asian names kind of changed across sources during this period. They weren't very, they didn't use the same name in every source. So Nityananda has spelt Chatterjee in multiple different ways across all the sources I've found of him. And he also goes by Nathaniel in some cases, which is really super helpful. So yeah, the main issue though, I think the most important issue would be the kind of Orientalist methodology that I have been using when looking at these sources. Because they are so limited in their kind of biographical information, there's no pictures of these people, there's no like demographic information about their ethnicity or whatever. I only really have place of birth and name to go off. And because of colonial period, a lot of people, your James Smiths, your Roberts, your Henrys, a lot of them were born in India. But I have to kind of assume that these people were white and they didn't feel the full brunt of colonialism and prejudice when they came over to Scotland. So I am looking for Chatterjees, I'm looking for Govindu Rajalus, but I understand that this is problematic and it kind of opens up questions about race and nationhood, which I don't have space for today, but yeah. I've also got a Jimini Sen signature there, but I think this was transcribed in the 90s as Yamini instead of Jamini. So that's another just tidbit of how South Asian names can be misinterpreted. So yeah, to finish off, I'm just going to say that it's kind of our responsibility as historians and as heritage workers to kind of be creative and reinterpret history in ways that are imaginative. This doesn't mean making things up, but it means taking what we have, recognizing the value of it, but also recognizing the limitations of it. So for the Royal Colleges, we've got the Jimini Sen portrait, and also for the Royal College of Surgeon, they recently unveiled their portrait of their women fellows, which was really cool, and hopefully you get to go see it today. But yeah, for me, I like to do oral history interviews. I think this is a good way of kind of like counterbalancing the lack of South Asian voices in these sources at the college. Also it's really valuable to future historians. So yeah, I think it's up to us to recognize the pros and cons of what we have, but also be creative in our approaches in the future. Thank you.